One of your chickens is nearly naked. What is going on? What is happening to her feathers? You consider the typical culprits: seasonal molting, parasitic infestations, stress from overcrowding, or bullying by fellow chickens. But you don't see any signs of these usual suspects. I can tell you exactly what the cause is. At first, I was mystified when my 8-month-old Easter egger Jody began losing feathers at an alarming rate, because I knew that the culprit was not any of those that I previously mentioned. After a little bit of sleuthing, I found the cause. It was my lovely little Buckeye hen, Billie Jean, who I caught red-handed, excuse the expression, carefully picking and eating Jody's feathers while she was self-absorbed in one of her dust bathing sessions. Why on earth was Billie Jean eating Jody's feathers? After diving deeper into the subject of this undesirable behavior, I considered the research that I had conducted. Poor Jody's feather loss wasn't from molting, it wasn't from another chicken's boredom. It wasn't bullying or dominance from a rival hen, it wasn't parasites, and it wasn't overcrowding. It could only be one other thing, a condition in chickens called pica, which is characterized by cravings for non-food items due to nutritional deficiencies. When I considered my previous observations of Billie Jean's eating habits and combined that with her feather-eating habit, I immediately concluded that she might indeed be suffering from a nutrient deficiency. Perhaps a shortage of necessary protein or calcium, both of which are found in chicken feathers. So I doubled down on my strategic approach of observation and common sense. I turned my focus to Billie Jean, whose erratic eating patterns provided much to think about. I remembered that Billie Jean had developed a food fetish, only choosing specific seeds and grains from the diverse mix of the whole grain layer feed that they all had unlimited access to, and she seldom, if ever, ate the layer crumble feed, which she also had access to. This rather unhealthy behavior was cause for concern, as it suggested she indeed was not consuming a well-rounded wholesome diet. I could only conclude that Billie Jean's protein intake was significantly lower than it should be. I felt that I was onto something. Insufficient protein in a chicken's diet could potentially lead to a host of health problems such as a weakened immune system, poor feather health, reduced egg production, and slower growth. I was dealing with a rather complex problem because chickens are very instinctive creatures, even knowing when they should intake calcium and when they should use a nesting box to lay their eggs, even if it's their very first time laying. I found myself leaning towards the conclusion that it was Billie Jean's own instinct that led her to realize that she needed more protein intake, and she instinctively knew that she could find it in feathers. Yes, this was speculation, but to me, it made perfect sense. I decided that Billie Jean's protein deficiency was a pressing issue that required immediate intervention because she was doing both harm to herself as well as to one of her coop mates. And, even more alarming, feather picking is a bad habit that is easily learned by other chickens when they see another one doing it, even if they don't have a deficiency. And that was not something that I wanted to have to deal with in my entire flock. During one of my observations, I discovered that Billie Jean was pecking Jody's feathers while Jody was oblivious to what was going on because a dust-bathing chicken goes into a state of ecstasy, it seems, and are not as alert as they might be otherwise. Billie Jean's behavior could eventually cause bleeding in Jody, and that could end in disaster because as fun as chickens are, they can also be brutal when they've tasted blood. They could continue to peck and peck until death occurs due to loss of blood. This is especially problematic when the other chickens gang up on the one that's bleeding. So this was another reason for my alarm and why it was vital that I find a solution to this problem. This brings me back to the reason that I concluded the problem stemmed from Billie Jean's deficiency in protein and not from the other possible causes. First of all, whereas a calcium deficiency was an initial concern, I was able to dismiss that idea because Billie Jean had unrestricted access to crushed oyster shells, which I witnessed her consuming on occasion. And their whole grain feed also contained crushed oyster shells, reassuring me that her calcium intake was healthy. So these facts left me to conclude that her dietary problem was primarily linked to an insufficient consumption of protein. So here I am today with a problem that I must find a solution for. And unfortunately, this is where my conundrum now lies. I now need to find a way to get Billie Jean to consume more protein because from what I have observed, she chooses not to eat the protein ingredients in her feed, and she doesn't eat the protein supplement treats that I give to them every day either. Despite my attempts to get her to eat the black soldier fly larvae and sunflower seeds, which are both rich in protein and are devoured by the other chickens, Billie Jean skips over them and eats the scratch feed instead. Even when I try hand feeding them to her, Billie Jean shows no interest. Here is another conundrum. As I mentioned before, Billie Jean is a Buckeye chicken breed, which are commonly referred to as mousers. This alias is derived from the Buckeye's well-documented dietary preference for small critters such as mice. This sparked a fascinating hypothesis in my mind. What if the protein requirements for Buckeye breeds are higher than for most other poultry breeds? And what if Billie Jean needed more protein than the average chicken, and I am not providing the type of protein that she prefers? Contrary to what many say, chickens will not eat any and everything. They have their food preferences too. With these thoughts in mind, I've developed a comprehensive plan to kickstart a higher protein diet for Billie Jean, which includes feeding her high-protein foods that I know she loves, such as cooked eggs, and sprouting some grains for her and the other chickens to eat. Sprouted grains are a veritable treasure trove of nutrition. Exploding with essential proteins, multiple vitamins, and copious minerals, sprouted grains, in her diet, could dramatically boost her protein consumption, providing the necessary fuel for her body. Similarly, eggs are an exceptional source of high-grade proteins and crucial acids vital for robust feather growth. The prepared diet plan sounds promising, yet there is always a chance of it not delivering the anticipated results. Then what? In such a case, I might have to implement harsher solutions. One viable option could be a period of lockdown, a well-documented technique to rectify harmful habits in chickens. This measure, though it can be stressful initially for both the chicken and the caretaker, has demonstrated success in many instances. The technique essentially involves seclusion of the chicken and, in this case, feeding Billie Jean the foods that she needs in order to be healthy, and hopefully, by doing so, forcing her to also abandon her detrimental habit. I've seen products on the market in the form of sprays and creams that are said to deter chickens from pecking each other, but I want to get to the root cause of the problem. I don't fancy the idea of applying ointment to my chickens every couple of days or so, which will only cause her stress anyway. Besides that, unless you're applying it to her entire body, I can't see it working. I've also come across anecdotes from fellow poultry keepers who have resorted to offering their chickens cat food as a means to enhance their protein intake. But that isn't something I'm ready to embrace at this point. While numerous poultry enthusiasts claim to have found a certain level of success with this method, it doesn't align with my personal philosophy on poultry nutrition. As a firm believer in the significance of maintaining a diet that directly corresponds to the inherent nature of poultry. In other words, I'm an advocate for providing chickens with a balanced diet, one that aligns with their natural dietary needs. I'm fully aware that the route that I'm taking isn't going to be an easy one, but if it works, it will all be worth it. And I'm optimistic that it will work. Actually, I'm excited about it because this is all about the well-being of my two feathery friends, Jody and Billie Jean. It's about devising a nutritional plan for them that will preserve Jody's feathers from Billie Jean's voracious appetite for picking them. And it's about addressing Billie Jean's dietary needs, ensuring that she gets all the essential nutrients she needs to flourish. My goal is unshakable. A harmonious solution that respects the individual needs of each chicken while promoting a poultry-friendly approach. And I am committed to achieving it because I love my chickens,